He thought getting reincarnated into his favorite web novel would make him the overpowered main character. Instead, the legendary system glitches, his S-rank powers never appear, and the story immediately goes off script. Now he's trapped inside a world where every change he makes creates an even deadlier future. He has to save a story that no longer follows its own plot. The story begins in complete chaos. Seo suddenly finds himself standing in the middle of a battlefield with absolutely no idea how he got there. A mysterious masked man stares him down and demands to know who he is. Meanwhile, Seo is freaking out because just a second ago, he was living a perfectly normal life. Not long before all of this, Seo had been drinking with his close friend Kim Shin, a web novel author who looked completely defeated after his latest series flopped. The frustrated writer complained that another project had failed, while Seo tried to cheer him up by reminding him that one bad novel wasn't the end of the world. The truth was, Seo had always been his biggest supporter, reading every single one of his stories from beginning to end. As a reader, Seo admitted that his friend's biggest strength was his incredible world building. The settings were detailed, the lore was interesting, and everything felt carefully planned. The problem was that the title and the overall concept felt way too generic. It looked like every other fantasy series on the market. Honestly, that was becoming a problem with half the industry these days. Kim Shin quietly accepted the criticism before asking a serious question. If Seo could change just one thing about the novel, what would it be? Seo laughed and said the first thing he would throw away was the overused status window system. Then he jokingly added that he would fill the story with more top-tier waifus because every fantasy world could always use more great characters. Seo assumed they were just joking around, but Kim Shin suddenly became interested. He started thinking about what would happen if his protagonist didn't rely on a status window at all. Without that system limiting him, the main character could become far more unpredictable. Seo immediately regretted giving such a serious answer, but before either of them could continue talking, something strange happened. An overwhelming wave of exhaustion hit Seo out of nowhere. His body became unbelievably heavy, the beer slipped from his hand, and his vision started fading. Kim Shin rushed toward him in panic as Seo collapsed onto the floor. Everything became blurry. Just before losing consciousness, Seo saw his friend's silhouette staring down at him with a bizarre smile while asking what was wrong. Then, everything went black. When Seo opened his eyes again, he was lying in his own bed with a splitting headache. Assuming it was nothing more than a brutal hangover, he dragged himself outside to buy some medicine. Things immediately became weird. At the convenience store, he realized he had forgotten his wallet, but that wasn't the strange part. The cashier couldn't stop staring at him. Her cheeks turned bright red before she awkwardly admitted that he was unbelievably handsome. Seo had never heard anyone say something like that before. Embarrassed, he thanked her and prepared to leave empty-handed, but then she casually asked whether he wanted to pay using status pay. Status pay. That single phrase completely threw him off. Still confused, Seo walked outside and looked at his reflection in a nearby car window. The face staring back wasn't his. He now had sharp ash-brown hair, striking eyes, and a perfectly sculpted face. His heart nearly stopped. That wasn't just some random handsome guy. It was the exact appearance of the protagonist from Kim Shin's novel. Thinking he had to be dreaming, Seo punched himself square in the face. The pain was very real. Before he could even process what happened, a gigantic tree towering above the skyscrapers caught his attention. The World Tree. It looked exactly like the one described in the novel. As if things weren't already insane enough, two children nearby casually summoned glowing status windows. One proudly equipped his weapon straight from his inventory while bragging that he would become an incredible superhuman. His friend immediately roasted the cheap E-rank weapon, saying it probably couldn't even beat a pigeon. The kid got so annoyed that he threw the weapon away. To everyone's surprise, it flew through the air and knocked a pigeon out in a single hit. Seo didn't even know how to react anymore. At that moment, every last doubt disappeared. He had truly reincarnated into the protagonist of his friend's novel. A woman nearby called the children over so they wouldn't miss the World Tree Festival. Seo's expression instantly changed. He remembered exactly what happened during that festival. The story hadn't truly begun yet. That meant he hadn't awakened his hidden S-rank status window. Trying not to panic, Seo decided to follow the original storyline as closely as possible. When he arrived at the festival, the enormous world tree stood proudly over the city, decorated for the grand celebration. According to the novel, this was the exact place where the protagonist would awaken his legendary power. Before anything happened, a kind elderly woman selling pastries smiled warmly and called him a handsome young man. She offered him freshly baked bread made from the leaves of the world tree. Seo nervously asked how much it cost. The price wasn't expensive. The problem was that he didn't have a single coin. The old woman simply suggested paying through his status window. Seo could only smile awkwardly because he didn't actually have one yet. Seeing how embarrassed he looked, the woman ignored the payment completely and insisted he take the bread for free. She explained that he reminded her of her own son and gently patted him on the back. Seo was genuinely touched by her kindness. Maybe life inside this fantasy world wouldn't be so terrible after all. Ironically, after he walked away, the old woman started feeling guilty because she thought the poor young man couldn't even afford a simple loaf of bread. Sitting on a nearby bench, Seo finally took a bite. The bread was unbelievably delicious. For a brief moment, he even wondered if living peacefully in this world wouldn't be such a bad idea. That peaceful thought didn't last long. A group of 3 teenagers walked past him, laughing together. Seo immediately recognized them as major characters from the novel. The cheerful blue-haired girl, the sarcastic brown-haired boy with the headband, and the elegant young man with the sharp eyes. They looked exactly as Kim Shin had described them. Seo almost walked over to introduce himself before stopping. They weren't supposed to meet yet. Something far more important was about to happen first. His face suddenly turned pale. A forgotten memory from the novel hit him like a truck. He finally remembered the event that awakened the protagonist's S-rank power. Before he could react, a massive explosion erupted behind him. Flames tore across the festival as terrified people began screaming and running in every direction. Seo stood frozen. He had completely forgotten about the enemy attack. This wasn't just a story anymore. He was standing inside the first major disaster of the novel, and surviving it had just become his biggest challenge. The masked villain bursts into laughter, calling everyone at the festival weak insects who had grown soft after years of peace. Hovering high above the burning plaza on a futuristic flying platform, he declares that the day of reckoning has finally arrived. Dressed in a bizarre purple suit with glowing red goggles, the terrifying man radiates madness from the moment he appears. Seo recognizes him immediately. This is the inventor, the most dangerous villain in the entire novel, the mastermind behind this disaster. As panic spreads through the crowd, Choi Ji-hoon shoves Seo aside and yells at him to stop freezing up and start running. Taking command without hesitation, Ji-hoon orders everyone to evacuate while helping the wounded escape. Seo follows the crowd, but reality finally sinks in. Reading about a terrorist attack is one thing. Living through one is something else entirely. Around them, the world tree burns as the inventor laughs like a complete psychopath. Several elite hunters rush forward to stop him. One of them summons his status window, equips a glowing gauntlet called the Aquamarine Embrace, and fires a powerful blast of blue energy into the sky. More S-rank heroes from famous guilds quickly join the fight, confidently telling the civilians that everything will be over in moments. Seo's heart immediately drops. He remembers the story. The inventor never came here to attack ordinary civilians. His target was everyone. With a sinister grin, the inventor presses a button on a strange metallic device. A crimson beam shoots into the sky before expanding into a massive floating orb. One of the hunters immediately launches a powerful fire attack to stop him. Then, the impossible happens. Every status window suddenly glitches. Magic disappears. Inventories refuse to open. The hunters collapse to the ground as every ounce of their power vanishes. The inventor laughs even harder. This was his masterpiece, the status disruptor. A machine capable of shutting down the entire system itself. According to him, humanity had become slaves to artificial power. His invention would free the world by forcing everyone to rely on nothing but raw physical strength. A massive crimson shockwave sweeps across the festival, leaving every superhuman completely powerless. The strongest hunters in the country are reduced to ordinary people in seconds. The inventor grabs one of the defeated warriors by the face and mockingly asks how it feels to lose power that was never truly theirs. No one can answer. So he answers for them. By dropping a handful of metallic grenades directly into the crowd, the explosions wipe out the fallen heroes instantly. The horrifying scene leaves everyone frozen in terror. Seo hides behind a nearby wall, covering his mouth to stop himself from making a sound. His entire body shakes uncontrollably. This isn't fiction anymore. If he dies here, he's dead for real. One surviving hunter desperately begs for mercy, saying he has a fiancée waiting for him. The inventor doesn't even blink. He simply raises his razor-sharp claws. Before he can finish the man off, Ji-hoon bursts through the smoke with a massive greatsword and swings with everything he has. Unfortunately, the attack barely matters. The inventor casually blocks the enormous blade with a single leg before launching Ji-hoon away with one brutal kick. Even so, the villain can't help but admire him. Without a status window, swinging a weapon that heavy should have been impossible. Smiling excitedly, the inventor decides Ji-hoon would make the perfect experimental subject back at his laboratory. Seo grabs his head in frustration. This should be the moment when the protagonist awakens his legendary power, but nothing is happening. Fear wins. Instead of fighting, Seo turns around and runs. He keeps telling himself that someone else will save the day, that everything will somehow fix itself, that this nightmare isn't real. Then, he suddenly stops. Lying on the ground in front of him is the elderly woman who gave him free bread only minutes earlier. Her pastries are scattered across the dirt. She isn't moving. Seo stares at her lifeless body as guilt crashes into him all at once. She showed him kindness when nobody else had any reason to. And now she's gone. At that moment, running away is no longer an option. Outside the barrier, government officials desperately try to figure out what sealed off the entire festival. Guild leaders grow increasingly anxious as they realize all of their members are trapped inside. Meanwhile, at the center of the battlefield, the inventor grabs Ji-hoon by the head and happily announces that he's taking him back to the lab to cut open his brain for research, before he can leave. Someone grabs the fallen greatsword. Seo steps out from the smoke, dragging the enormous weapon behind him. Without saying a word, he charges straight at the villain. His first swing nearly splits the inventor in half. Only a last-second dodge saves the villain's life. The inventor's expression changes immediately. How could this kid still move? His status disruptor should have disabled everyone. Staring through his glowing red lenses, he demands to know who Seo really is. Seo silently curses himself. Missing that first attack might have just signed his own death warrant. The inventor briefly wonders whether Seo possesses some ancient relic capable of resisting the system before dismissing the idea entirely. Instead, he reaches a different conclusion. This strange young man would make an even better research specimen. The surviving hunters can only watch in disbelief. Even with an awkward fighting stance, Seo somehow manages to wield the black iron greatsword. That weapon requires absurd, a rank physical strength just to lift. Yet, somehow, he's using it. The inventor rushes forward, slamming his metal claws against the giant blade. Seo barely blocks the attack before panic floods his mind. Where is the S-rank status window? Why hasn't it awakened yet? Before he can react, the inventor slips underneath the sword and drives a blast of crimson lightning directly into Seo's body. Agonizing pain explodes through him. The sword flies from his hands. His body is launched backward before crashing violently into the ground. Blood pours from his mouth. He's dying. The inventor lifts Seo into the air by his throat, celebrating another successful discovery. Looking closer, he notices something unusual about Seo's body. His eyes suddenly light up. Laughing hysterically, the villain realizes he's stumbled across something even more valuable than he ever imagined. Without hesitation, he carries Seo onto his flying platform, eager to dissect him back at his laboratory. Barely able to breathe, Seo refuses to accept that fate. Using every last bit of strength left, he drives a powerful kick straight into the inventor's chest. The attack catches the villain completely off guard. Seo breaks free, but immediately begins falling, straight toward the burning world tree below. As the wind tears past him, he bitterly remembers how excited he was to wake up inside his favorite fantasy novel. Now, It has become the worst nightmare imaginable. Closing his eyes, Seo quietly accepts that this short second life is about to end. Then, the world glitches. Error messages flash through the air. Green light surrounds him as reality itself begins breaking apart. When Seo opens his eyes again, he finds himself floating inside a brilliant white space overflowing with glowing emerald particles. Golden light shines from his own eyes as mysterious energy flows throughout his body. Standing silently behind him is a beautiful spiritual elf wrapped in ancient robes surrounded by glowing runes. Without saying a single word, she gently offers him a sphere of pure green light. Seo instinctively reaches toward it. The moment the orb touches his hand, it transforms into a magnificent golden bow overflowing with the power of the World Tree. A blinding explosion of emerald light consumes everything. Seo's consciousness returns to reality. The inventor stares in complete disbelief as Seo slowly descends through a towering pillar of green light. The World Tree itself is resonating with him. Holding the legendary bow, Seo calmly draws back its string as spiritual energy surges around him. The inventor immediately recognizes both the ancient relic and the elven mark. Instead of panicking, he bursts into excited laughter. His research had been correct all along. Someone had finally transcended the system itself. Seo creates a gigantic arrow made entirely of emerald energy. Without hesitation, he releases it. The arrow tears through the sky before striking the inventor head-on. His advanced equipment explodes into pieces. More importantly, the status disruptor shatters. A massive explosion of green light erupts above the festival as the crimson interference disappears. Lying on the ground, Ji-hoon barely manages to open his eyes. The last thing he sees before passing out is Seo floating beside the World Tree like a legendary hero, surrounded by golden light while holding the radiant bow. That image burns itself into his memory forever. The bow slowly dissolves into countless glowing particles as Seo lands back on the ground. The overwhelming spiritual energy finally fades. Completely exhausted after firing a single shot, he collapses unconscious. With the inventor defeated, the barrier surrounding the festival disappears. Emergency forces rush into the area as medics begin treating the wounded survivors. Among those arriving is a young blonde archer carrying a wooden bow. Certain that the attack was the inventor's work, she races toward the World Tree, determined to confront him herself. Instead, she comes to an abrupt stop. Soft green light drifts gently around the tree's massive roots. At the center of the glowing leaves lies Seo, peacefully unconscious while the World Tree quietly heals every wound on his body. Blue warning messages flash across the system, announcing a critical failure before immediately launching an emergency recovery protocol. Moments later, Seo slowly opens his eyes inside a bright hospital room. His entire body aches as he sits up in bed, trying to remember what happened. The memories come flooding back. The World Tree, the spiritual elf, the legendary bow, the battle against the inventor. Everything happened exactly as he remembered, except for one major problem. The S-rank status window never appeared. Instead, the last thing he remembers hearing was the system itself reporting a critical error. Before he can make sense of it, a young woman's voice suddenly asks if he's finally awake. Seo nearly jumps out of bed. Standing at the doorway is one of the most important characters in the entire novel, Shin-jia, the beautiful golden-haired heiress of the nation's largest conglomerate and one of the academy's strongest elite students. Without thinking, Seo blurts out her name. The girl immediately looks surprised. She has never met him before. So how does he know who she is? Seo instantly starts panicking. According to the original novel, Shin-jia was supposed to become the protagonist's greatest rival after both of them entered the Superhuman Academy. She was a genius in both combat and academics, and absolutely hated losing to someone blessed with an overpowered S-rank ability. Meeting her now wasn't part of the story at all. What happens next completely shatters every expectation. Instead of treating him like a rival, Shin-jia suddenly drops to her knees. With absolute respect, she bows her head before him. Seo completely freezes. His brain stops working. The girl calmly tells him that it's an honor to finally meet the elven ancestor. Seo nearly falls out of the hospital bed. He quickly remembers an old piece of forgotten lore from the novel. 10,000 years ago, legendary races like dragons, dwarves, vampires, and elves fought for survival, while Korea eventually became the homeland of the elves thanks to the sacred world tree. But none of that explains why she's calling him their ancestor. Shinjia gently places a hand on his shoulder before pointing at something glowing beneath his hospital gown. Seo looks down. A brilliant emerald crest has appeared on his skin. His face immediately turns pale. It's the royal crest of the elven race, the authentic symbol of their bloodline. Completely confused, Seo asks why something like that is on his body. Shinjia simply smiles and tells him not to worry. Only a handful of people even know that crest exists. She promises to keep his true identity a secret. Seo wants to explain that she's completely misunderstanding the situation, but she doesn't give him the chance. Grabbing both of his hands, Shinjia excitedly asks the question that's been bothering her ever since the festival. Was he the one who defeated the inventor? She explains that the mysterious warrior awakened from the world tree itself before saving everyone. She even searched her family's massive corporate database but couldn't find a single record of him. It was almost as if he had appeared from nowhere. Seo desperately denies being an elf or some legendary hero. Unfortunately, she doesn't believe a single word. Instead, Shinjia walks over to an ornate wooden box she brought with her. Inside rests an ancient family treasure, a golden amulet with a glowing green gemstone. She calls it the Forest Calm Seal. If Seo truly isn't an elf, then the relic shouldn't react at all. Seo suddenly smiles. Perfect, this misunderstanding is finally about to end. Confidently, he grabs the amulet. The instant his fingers touch it, the entire relic erupts with blinding emerald light. Seo screams in complete panic. The amulet pours an overwhelming amount of spiritual energy directly into his body, while the royal crest on his shoulder begins shining even brighter. Shinjia watches the entire scene in amazement. Meanwhile, Seo can only stare in horror. This never happened in the original novel, not even close. As the warm energy flows through him, Seo suddenly recognizes the sensation. It's identical to what he felt just before meeting the spiritual elf inside that mysterious white dimension. Shinjia excitedly points at the glowing crest, praising his incredible power. Seo, on the other hand, realizes the plot has completely gone off the rails. Without a status window, he still activated an ancient elven relic. Remembering that the inventor was responsible for taking Shinjia's mother in the original story, Seo realizes revealing the truth now could create even more problems. So, he makes a reckless decision. Straightening his posture, Seo tells Shinjia that everything she witnessed today must remain an absolute secret. Then, he fully commits to the act. With the most mysterious expression he can manage, he calmly announces, he is indeed the elven ancestor. According to his completely fabricated story, Shinjia's mother's spirit awakened him from his slumber within the world tree so he could eliminate the villain threatening the world. The lie works perfectly. Shinjia becomes so emotional that she almost tears up. Seo quickly adds that taking human form exhausted nearly all of his strength. Then, without missing a beat, he asks if there's anything to eat. The serious atmosphere instantly disappears. Shinjia happily rushes out of the room to prepare food, leaving Seo lying in bed wondering how the strongest young woman in the country just believed such an absurd story. The moment he's finally alone, something strange happens. The Forest Calm Seal suddenly jumps out of his hand all by itself. Seo stares at it in confusion. Did the relic reject him? Looking closer, he notices faint green energy still flowing through the veins in his hand. The sight reminds him of the spiritual elf once again. After thinking it through, Seo reaches an important conclusion. He may never have received the famous S-rank status window. Instead, he inherited the hidden power of the elves themselves. Before he can test the theory any further, Shinjia returns with an entire meal prepared by the Academy's head chef. She continues treating him with unbelievable respect, making Seo more uncomfortable by the second. As he devours the food, one sentence suddenly catches his attention. She casually mentions the Superhuman Academy. Seo stops eating. Wait, they're already inside the academy. Shinjia smiles and opens the curtains. Outside the window stands the enormous Superhuman Academy, the most prestigious institution in the country and the very place where the original story truly begins. Seo can't help smiling. Despite everything changing, maybe he can still follow the original storyline after all. After finishing every last drop of soup, Seo tells Shinjia he has one important favor to ask. The story then shifts to the academy entrance ceremony. Students gather across the massive campus while everyone whispers excitedly about Shinjia enrolling this year. Their attention quickly shifts toward the unbelievably handsome young man walking beside her. Several students immediately recognize him as the mysterious hero from the festival. Among them, the cheerful blue-haired girl watches him with surprise. Nearby, Choi Ji-hoon silently observes Seo with a thoughtful expression, still unable to forget the warrior who saved his life. Meanwhile, Seo simply keeps walking with a calm smile. At the top of the academy building, a tiny girl wearing a funny hat suddenly jumps off the rooftop. Instead of falling, she gracefully floats through the air using magic before welcoming every new student to the prestigious Superhuman Academy. Watching the ceremony begin, Seo realizes his new life is finally about to start, and this time, he'll have to survive a story that no longer follows its original script. The entrance exam officially moves into its next phase, and the academy quickly fills with whispers. Everywhere Seo walks, students can't help staring at him. The girls are completely captivated by his looks, while everyone else wonders who the handsome newcomer is. That admiration disappears almost instantly. The academy reveals everyone's basic stats: strength, agility, magic. Every single one of Seo's results comes back as F rank. Seo can barely believe what he's seeing. His strength bottoms out at F rank. During the sprint test, he wipes out so badly that his agility also earns an F. Then he pours every ounce of effort into the magic test, only to receive another humiliating F. His dream of dominating the academy from day one completely falls apart. Meanwhile, the other students don't waste the opportunity to mock him. Some even joke that their grandmothers could beat him in a fight. Seo can only scream internally. The original protagonist breezed through these tests thanks to his broken S-rank status window. Without it, he's become the weakest student in the entire academy. Just as he's drowning in embarrassment, an overwhelming surge of spiritual energy erupts nearby. Shinjia steps forward for her turn. The room instantly fills with brilliant magical power as the examiner calmly announces her result. B rank. The entire testing hall falls silent. Even the instructors are impressed. For a freshman to possess magic on that level is practically unheard of. Several students immediately start talking about how someone from the Shinhwa group was simply born different. Then, Shinjia suddenly turns towards Seo. With a warm smile, she waves directly at him. The entire room freezes. Everyone immediately starts asking what kind of relationship the weakest student could possibly have with the academy's top genius. A few troublemakers walk over and begin mocking Seo, saying she was probably laughing at his miserable grades. Their laughter doesn't last long. Shinjia slowly walks toward them with an icy expression. One of the boys nervously congratulates her on her amazing score. She doesn't even acknowledge the compliment. Instead, she stares straight at him and coldly asks why he thinks he has the right to reach toward her. The crushing pressure in her voice is enough to make the boy panic. Seo quietly sighs in relief. Thank goodness he told her not to call him ancestor in public. Otherwise, this situation would have become far more chaotic. With the physical tests finally over, everyone heads to the second phase of the entrance exam, the written theory test. The white-haired instructor, Fabius, explains that knowledge is just as important as strength because even the greatest superhuman is useless without understanding how to use their abilities. Seo suddenly becomes nervous. The original novel never described this exam. He has no idea what kind of questions will appear. Since his physical scores are already a disaster, this is his only chance to recover. The test begins. Seo immediately notices something unbelievable. He knows every single answer. After reading Kim Shin's novel countless times, every bit of information about the world's history, monsters, races, artifacts, and magic comes rushing back into his mind. His hand flies across the paper without stopping, while everyone else struggles. Seo finishes the entire exam in record time. Nearby, another student gets caught cheating. Without hesitation, Instructor Fabius disqualifies him on the spot before magically sealing his mouth shut to restore silence. Once everything settles down, Seo calmly announces, "He's already finished." The instructor looks completely unconvinced. Someone with F-rank stats couldn't possibly complete the exam that quickly. At least, that's what he thinks. The moment Fabius reviews Seo's answer sheet, he freezes. Every answer is correct, a perfect score. The classroom waits anxiously as the strict instructor slowly raises his head. Instead of criticizing Seo, he demands to know exactly who this young man thinks he is. Seo knows this is a test of character just as much as intelligence. Standing confidently, he introduces himself before declaring that one day he'll become the greatest superhuman in the world. He asks the instructor to watch his growth carefully from this moment onward. For the first time, Fabius smiles. He praises Seo's confidence just as much as his flawless exam, promising to keep an eye on him from now on. Seo quietly celebrates inside. If he can't rely on an S-rank status window, then he'll conquer this world using the knowledge he already possesses. Not long afterward, the rankings are posted. Students crowd around the bulletin board. Nobody believes what they're seeing. The student who scored first, even above Shinjia, is Seo. He smiles to himself. At least one part of his plan worked. Now only one challenge remains: the weapon aptitude test. The examiner summons an enormous magical armory filled with every weapon imaginable. Swords, spears, axes, bows, everything materializes out of thin air as students eagerly choose their equipment. Seo hesitates. The original protagonist specialized in one-handed swords. But after everything that happened at the World Tree, a bow suddenly feels far more natural. Before he can make his choice, Shinjia quietly appears behind him. One whisper nearly makes him jump out of his skin. Ancestor. Seo hurriedly tells her to stop calling him that, especially in front of everyone. She simply smiles and congratulates him on earning first place in the written exam. Completely misunderstanding the situation, she assumes he intentionally hid his true strength during the physical tests. Seo can only groan internally. He wasn't pretending. He really was that weak. Wanting to help, Shinjia presents him with a breathtaking weapon, the legendary Elysium bow, one of the finest bows money can buy. She reveals she prepared it specifically for him and asks him to show everyone what he's truly capable of. Seo gratefully accepts the gift. The instant he grips the bow, it feels unbelievably familiar, almost like he'd been using bows his entire life. Then, a mysterious golden light begins glowing behind him. At the same time, the mark on his shoulder starts reacting once again. Before he can investigate, someone blocks his path. It's Choi Ji-hoon. The young swordsman stares directly into Seo's eyes with absolute certainty. Without hesitation, he asks the question Seo was hoping nobody would ever ask. Why is he hiding his true strength? Ji-hoon recalls the battle against the inventor and confidently declares that the person who truly defeated the terrorist was Seo. Choi Ji-hoon refuses to let the matter go. Staring straight at Seo, he confidently repeats that the person who defeated the inventor during the World Tree attack was him. Seo immediately plays dumb. Inside, though, he's completely panicking. Did Ji-hoon actually witness the entire fight? Ji-hoon calmly explains exactly why he's so certain. During the battle, he personally saw Seo wield the massive black iron greatsword with one hand. That weapon requires at least a rank physical strength just to lift, yet the same guy who accomplished that somehow scored nothing but F ranks during the Academy's physical tests. The numbers simply don't add up. Growing impatient, Ji-hoon demands that Seo stop pretending and finally explain what he's hiding, just as he's about to mention the mysterious bow from the festival. Shinjia steps between them. Without the slightest hesitation, she coldly tells Ji-hoon to mind his own business. The proud heir immediately glares back. But Shinjia isn't intimidated in the slightest. Instead, she calls him nothing more than a spoiled heir from the rival Suzong group. The atmosphere instantly turns explosive. The heirs of the country's two biggest corporations stand face to face, looking ready to start a fight right there in the middle of the academy. Fortunately, Ji-hoon's teammates quickly pull him back before things get out of control. Seo quietly places a hand on Shinjia's shoulder and asks her to calm down as well. Thankfully, she listens. Before either side can continue arguing, the examiner calls Ji-hoon's name to begin the weapon evaluation. As he walks away, Ji-hoon throws one last glance toward Seo. Then he leaves him with a warning. From now on, he'll be watching his every move. Seo forces an awkward smile, but inside he reaches one conclusion. Ji-hoon is far sharper than he looks. If he's not careful, his secret won't stay hidden for long. Ji-hoon steps into the testing arena carrying the enormous black iron greatsword. The examiner activates a combat robot and orders him to demonstrate his abilities. The machine rushes forward at full speed. Ji-hoon calmly waits for the perfect opening before exploding into action. He dodges the robot's attack with impressive footwork, lands a crushing kick, then raises the gigantic sword above his head. One devastating swing later, the combat robot is split clean in half. The crowd erupts into cheers. Even the examiner admits the attack power is outstanding. The only criticism is that Ji-hoon's swordsmanship hasn't fully caught up to the legendary weapon he's carrying. Ji-hoon clicks his tongue in annoyance. Then, the next name is called, Seo. Shinjia quietly wishes her ancestor good luck, earning another embarrassed sigh from Seo before he walks into the arena. The examiner looks over his profile and immediately recognizes him as the student who somehow managed to earn F rank in every physical category. After giving him a quick lecture, she points toward a target positioned 1,000 meters away. She simply asks him to land one successful shot. Seo takes a deep breath. His shoulder begins tingling again. It's the exact same sensation he felt when the world tree blessed him. Slowly, he draws the bowstring. The moment he does, glowing emerald energy begins surrounding his body. Without hesitation, he releases the arrow. It streaks across the arena like a beam of green light before striking the exact center of the target over a kilometer away. The entire arena falls silent. Even the examiner can't understand how someone with F-rank strength and mana could perform a shot like that. Seo smiles to himself. The world tree's blessing really is working. He fires again. Another perfect shot. Some students laugh, claiming the second arrow must have missed because they can only see one arrow sticking out of the bullseye. Ji-hoon immediately shuts them down. Crossing his arms, he calmly tells them to look closer. Everyone finally notices the truth. Seo's second arrow didn't miss. It split the first arrow perfectly down the middle, shattering it before taking its place in the exact center of the target. The entire crowd is left speechless. As if that unbelievable shot wasn't enough, Seo repeats it. Again and again, every arrow perfectly splits the previous one. The impossible feat becomes almost routine. The examiner finally grabs Seo by the shoulder with overwhelming excitement. Then, to everyone's shock, she bows. Apologizing sincerely, she explains that the Academy's grading system only goes up to A rank if higher grades existed. She would have gladly given him one. As a bow instructor, she admits she's never witnessed such flawless marksmanship. Seo can't help smiling. He finally understands what the blessing on his shoulder truly means. Even without the legendary S-rank status window, he still possesses a power capable of surpassing everyone's expectations. Meanwhile, the female students can't stop praising him. Some admire his unbelievable accuracy. Others jokingly claim that even if his stats are F-rank, his face is definitely S-rank. Watching the girls gather around him, Shinjia quietly pouts with obvious jealousy. Not long afterward, the admission ceremony officially comes to an end. Students receive the keys to their dormitories, and Seo heads to his new room. The luxurious suite leaves him completely stunned. Compared to his old apartment, this place feels like a palace. There's even a massive bathtub waiting for him after the exhausting day, as Seo happily looks forward to relaxing. The story shifts elsewhere. A masked instructor enters the academy director's office to deliver an important report. The director immediately recognizes the student being discussed, Kang Seo. The mysterious freshman who somehow failed every physical test, aced the written exam, and received overwhelming praise during the weapon evaluation. She jokingly suggests he's secretly a powerhouse pretending to be weak. The instructor immediately shakes his head. According to his observations, Seo's physical strength is genuinely F rank. His arms were visibly shaking while drawing the bow, yet, somehow, His archery talent is on an entirely different level. Using the ability hidden within his left eye, the instructor concludes that Seo may possess an extraordinarily rare trait. Perhaps the legendary divine archer, or maybe something even rarer. The academy director smiles mischievously. The mysterious freshman has officially caught her interest. She orders the instructor to keep Seo under constant observation from now on, completely unaware that the academy's highest authorities are already investigating him. Seo is fast asleep, not on his expensive bed, but sprawled out across the cold floor of his luxurious new room. The next morning, the academy begins its first theory class. The instructor explains that every superhuman exists for 3 reasons: protect human lives, explore dangerous dungeons to keep the public safe, and eliminate monsters and villains that threaten society. Without hesitation, Shinjia raises her hand and perfectly answers every point, earning praise from the instructor. Today's lesson, she explains, will focus entirely on villains, using the recent World Tree Festival attack as the perfect example. The image of the inventor appears on the classroom screen. The instructor reminds everyone that the terrorist was powerful enough to neutralize even S-rank heroes. If an unknown warrior hadn't stopped him, the country would have suffered a catastrophic disaster. Seo immediately grows nervous. Meanwhile, Choi Ji-hoon quietly glances back at him before pretending nothing happened. His suspicion hasn't disappeared, not even a little. On the other side of the room, Shinjia flashes Seo a proud thumbs up, making him break into a cold sweat all over again. The instructor then reveals the academy's philosophy. Their goal isn't simply to train students, it's to make sure every graduate can defeat any opponent standing before them. While the class discusses the recent attack, one loudmouth boasts that if he had been at the festival, he would have ripped the villain apart himself. Most students laugh. Seo doesn't. The moment he hears that student's name, his face turns pale. He remembers exactly who that boy is. According to the original novel, within a single week, he'll become the starting point of one of the Academy's bloodiest tragedies. Not because he's secretly evil, because a monster called Doppelganger will murder him and steal his identity. Disguised as the student, the creature will quietly massacre countless cadets before anyone realizes the truth. Knowing what's coming, Seo keeps staring at the unsuspecting classmate sleeping peacefully at his desk. He has to stop this somehow. Before he can think of a plan, instructor Pyo Jin-ho suddenly calls his name. Seo immediately snaps back to reality. The instructor scolds him for not paying attention before challenging him with a difficult theory question. What is the 4th major factor used to determine a hunter's overall combat rank besides attributes, skills, and traits? The entire classroom waits for his answer. After thinking for only a moment, Seo confidently replies, "Combat items." The instructor nods before pushing the question even further. He projects the image of a legendary S-rank sword and presents a hypothetical battle. A B-rank hunter wielding that legendary weapon versus an S-rank hunter carrying nothing more than an ordinary sword. Who wins? Before Seo can respond, Choi Ji-hoon confidently interrupts. Obviously, the S-rank hunter. Superior stats always win. The instructor slowly turns toward him, then calmly asks, "Did anyone ask for his opinion?" The room instantly falls silent. Ji-hoon can only grit his teeth after getting shut down in front of everyone. Finally, the instructor returns his attention to Seo. Seo calmly explains that he agrees only partially. Normally, the S-rank hunter would dominate, but equipment can completely change the outcome of a battle. The gap between ordinary gear and legendary equipment is enormous. A basic sword might shatter the instant it collides with an S-rank weapon. That single opening could completely reverse the fight. The classroom immediately erupts with whispers. The instructor, however, smiles. Seo's answer is absolutely correct. He reminds everyone that battles aren't decided by stats alone. Skills, traits, strategy, and equipment all matter just as much. Blindly relying on raw attributes is one of the fastest ways to lose a fight. The entire class acknowledges the lesson together while Shin-jia quietly smiles with obvious pride after hearing Seo's answer. Once classes end, Seo walks through the academy halls by himself, thinking about everything he has learned. He still doesn't possess the legendary S-rank status window from the original story. Instead, he seems to have awakened something entirely different, A bizarre system glitch, one that allows him to ignore the restrictions normally placed on powerful equipment, if that's true. He might be able to use weapons and relics no ordinary hunter could ever wield. As he organizes his thoughts, he suddenly spots someone walking farther down the hallway. It's the very student destined to become Doppelganger's first victim. Seo immediately rushes over. The bully greets him with obvious annoyance, calling him nothing more than an F-rank nerd. Ignoring the insult, Seo insists he has something extremely important to discuss. For a moment, he considers telling the complete truth, that in 1 week he'll be murdered by a monster that steals identities. But who would possibly believe a story like that? Instead, Seo settles for a much simpler warning. With a serious expression, he tells the student one thing: whatever happens, don't go to the casino this weekend. The bully's friend bursts into laughter, joking that he thought Seo was about to confess his feelings instead. Unfortunately, the bully misunderstands everything. He immediately assumes Seo somehow discovered his secret gambling habit. Furious, he grabs Seo by the collar and accuses him of investigating his private life. Then he admits something unexpected. He had actually looked into Seo first. After watching him earn a perfect score on the written exam, he suspected Seo had cheated his way into the academy. His anger only grows worse as he accuses Seo of acting important simply because he spends time around Shinjia. Then, jealousy completely takes over. The bully shouts that he wanted to walk beside Shinjia too. Seo can barely focus on the argument anymore, mostly because the guy's terrible breath is becoming its own weapon. Then, everything suddenly goes quiet. A terrifying presence appears behind them. Shinjia. She gently asks one question: who exactly wants to walk beside someone like him? Before the bully can even react, she grabs him from behind and slams him straight into the hallway floor with overwhelming force. The impact knocks him unconscious instantly. A second later, her murderous aura completely disappears. She turns back toward Seo wearing the sweetest smile imaginable before politely asking if her dear ancestor is all right. Seo simply swallows hard. After witnessing that unbelievable display of strength, he's starting to think the real monster at this academy might not be Doppelganger after all. With the casino incident prevented, Cho Kangim ends up in the hospital wearing a neck brace and questioning every decision that led him there. To nobody's surprise, Shinjia receives absolutely no punishment thanks to the overwhelming influence of the Shinhwa group. Seo quietly watches everything unfold. His warning actually worked. The murder that should have happened at the casino never took place. But instead of celebrating, he grows even more worried. Changing the story means the future is no longer predictable. If Doppelganger couldn't claim its original victim, would it simply choose someone else? Seo quickly reaches one conclusion: if he wants to stop the massacre from happening, he'll have to deal with the monster himself. Before he can think any further, instructor Pyo Jin-ho announces the start of the academy's mock combat matches. Seo's first opponent is Choi Ji-hoon, the worst possible matchup. The surrounding students immediately begin whispering about how quickly the duel will end. Seo knows they're probably right. Ji-hoon possesses overwhelming physical strength, while his own stats are still stuck at F rank. No matter how many arrows he fires, they probably won't even scratch him. As everyone confidently predicts his defeat, Seo quietly walks toward the arena. Just before entering, instructor Pyo Jin-ho unexpectedly hands him a combat dagger. Even archers, he explains, need a close-range weapon for emergencies. Seo gratefully accepts the blade. The duel begins inside a magical barrier designed to prevent fatal injuries. The announcer warns that although nobody can die, the pain is still very real. Seo and Ji-hoon lock eyes. The countdown begins. 3, 2, 1, fight. The instant the signal sounds, Ji-hoon explodes forward like a missile. Seo instinctively jumps backward, trying to maintain distance so he can fight with his bow. He never gets the chance. Before he can even release an arrow, Ji-hoon is already standing right in front of him. The massive greatsword comes crashing down. At the last possible moment, Seo barely blocks the strike using nothing but the small combat dagger. The impact sends him flying onto his back. Even Ji-hoon looks surprised. For someone with F-rank stats, those reflexes shouldn't be possible. Looking down at Seo, Ji-hoon honestly wonders if he really is nothing more than an F-rank hunter after all. The spectators quickly begin mocking Seo, calling the fight disappointing and telling him to surrender before he embarrasses himself any further. Lying on the arena floor, Seo clenches his dagger tighter. For the first time, he decides to stop holding back. Knowing his life isn't actually at risk inside the training barrier, he chooses to gamble everything. With a battle cry, he charges forward. Suddenly, the world changes. Emerald light surrounds his body. The arena disappears. Once again, Seo finds himself connected to the same mysterious presence he encountered beneath the world tree. A calm voice echoes inside his mind. The one blessed by the world tree should surrender his body to the path of the wind. Seo has no idea what that means. Then he notices something impossible. Bright red lines suddenly appear in front of his eyes. Each one traces the exact path of Ji-hoon's incoming attacks. Without thinking, Seo simply follows them. He lets the wind guide his body. The moment Ji-hoon swings again, Seo moves. Their weapons collide with a deafening crash. Ji-hoon's eyes widen in disbelief. His full-powered strike was completely parried by an F-rank student holding nothing but a dagger. The spectators erupt into chaos. Nobody can understand what they just witnessed. Even Seo stares at his own weapon in disbelief. He has no idea how he managed to block that attack. Ji-hoon refuses to accept it. Grinding his teeth, he launches another attack. And another. Again and again, Seo follows the glowing red paths shown by the mysterious wind. His body weaves through every strike with impossible precision. Unfortunately, that's all he can do. His physical strength is simply too low. Dodging and parrying are already pushing his body to its absolute limit. Without the magical energy protecting his hands, the repeated impacts would have shattered every bone in them. Outside the arena, instructor Pyo-jin-ho watches silently. Is this really the limit of Seo's mysterious talent? Ji-hoon roars in frustration before delivering another crushing downward slash. At the final instant, Seo realizes something. The wind guiding him isn't coming from outside, it's coming from within himself. Instead of resisting it, he completely gives himself over to the flow. His body suddenly accelerates. In a single blur of movement, Seo slips past Ji-hoon's sword, dashes around his side, and appears directly behind him. His dagger stops against Ji-hoon's back. The entire arena falls silent. Seo actually reached a position where he could have won. Then reality catches up. His arm trembles. His blade can't pierce Ji-hoon's armor. His strength simply isn't enough. Before Seo can react, Ji-hoon spins around and drives a powerful kick straight into his body. Seo crashes onto the ground, completely exhausted. The match is over. Victory goes to Choi Ji-hoon. Most students shrug, saying an F rank never stood a chance anyway. Others quietly admit that Seo survived far longer than anyone expected. One female instructor can't hide her surprise. Despite entering the academy as an archer, Seo's dagger techniques were extraordinary. She even wonders whether he secretly falsified his attributes. Instructor Pyo-jin-ho immediately dismisses the idea. Seo's muscle movements and physical reactions clearly belong to an F-rank hunter. His stats are unquestionably genuine. There is only one possible explanation. Seo possesses an incredibly rare irregular trait. As the instructor silently evaluates the duel, he reaches a startling conclusion. If Seo ever raised his physical attributes to even A rank, he wouldn't just become one of the academy's strongest students. He could easily stand among the 10 strongest hunters in the entire world. On what should have been a peaceful weekend morning, Seo sits alone in the academy cafeteria, quietly eating breakfast. The massive dining hall is completely empty, making him wonder how everyone else is probably enjoying their day off while he can barely move. Every muscle in his body still aches from yesterday's brutal duel against Ji-hoon. But physical pain isn't what's bothering him the most. His thoughts remain fixed on Doppelganger. Even though he knows the original story, Seo realizes trying to control every future event is nothing but arrogance. The more he changes the plot, the less predictable everything becomes. Before he can think of another solution, a familiar voice suddenly echoes through the cafeteria. Ancestor. Seo nearly drops his breakfast. Shin Jia walks over with her usual bright smile, asking why he looks so troubled this early in the morning. Seo immediately begs her to stop calling him ancestor, especially inside the cafeteria. She simply giggles. There's nobody else around, so she doesn't see the problem. Instead, she excitedly starts talking about yesterday's duel, praising him for surviving against Ji-hoon. Seo awkwardly says he only remembers losing, but Shinjia quickly shakes her head. According to her, he was incredible. Dodging every attack while secretly hiding his true elven powers was more than enough to impress her. Seo once again tries explaining that he isn't hiding anything. Shinjia immediately places a finger against his lips to silence him. With an unusually serious expression, she warns him never to reveal his true abilities. If the Academy realizes how powerful he really is, people will start watching him. Seo gently moves her hand aside, confused by her warning. Shinjia simply insists that hiding his strength is the safest choice. Left alone with his thoughts again, Seo starts analyzing his mysterious ability. His system glitch doesn't actually make him stronger. Instead, it ignores the restrictions placed on ancient artifacts. Whenever he equips one of those relics, his body temporarily gains the abilities and traits of the race connected to that item. The problem: the blessing only lasts about 1 minute. Without more ancient artifacts, his options remain incredibly limited. Seeing him sink into thought once more, Shinjia softly tells him he doesn't have to carry every burden by himself. Even someone as strong as him should rely on others once in a while. Those simple words suddenly spark an idea inside Seo's mind. His eyes light up. He finally understands what he's been missing. Before Shinjia can even finish offering her own help, Seo excitedly reaches over and gently pats her on the head. The unexpected gesture completely freezes her in place. Her face turns bright red. Seo sincerely thanks her, saying she just gave him exactly the answer he needed. Then he grabs his tray, wishes her a great day, and sprints out of the cafeteria before she can even process what happened. Shinjia remains sitting there completely motionless, one hand resting on her head as she quietly replays the moment over and over again. Meanwhile, Seo has already decided on his next move. He won't try stopping Doppelganger alone anymore. He'll find someone powerful enough to help him. Later that day, Seo arrives at a memorial dedicated to the victims of the recent terrorist attack. White flowers, candles, and heartfelt letters cover the monument. A graceful red-haired woman dressed entirely in black quietly places another flower before standing up. Seo recognizes her immediately. Yu Hua, the respected leader of the Bihan Guild. Without disturbing her, Seo kneels before the memorial and silently offers his own flower, praying for the guild members who lost their lives during the attack. As he quietly expresses his regret over the deaths caused by the terrorist, Yu Hua suddenly turns toward him. She immediately notices something strange. The information Seo casually mentioned was never released to the public. Before Seo can leave, Yu Hua stops him. Her sharp gaze immediately pressures him. How does a simple academy student know confidential details about her guild? Seo can already feel how terrifying she truly is. Even so, he calmly asks her to hear him out. Then he drops a bombshell. He knows exactly who murdered her guild members, and he can help her catch the killer. Yu Hua naturally doesn't believe a single word. She reminds Seo that she's one of the country's strongest hunters and warns him to think carefully before making reckless claims. Seo expected this reaction, so he reveals the one piece of information only someone involved could possibly know: the killer's name, Doppelganger. Yu Hua's eyes widen. That code name was never made public. There's no way an ordinary student should know it. For the first time, she begins taking him seriously. Before Seo can celebrate, Yu Hua suddenly disappears. In the next instant, a razor-sharp blade materializes against his throat. Seo immediately panics. Begging her not to kill him, he insists he only wants to stop the monster before it strikes again. Then he reveals the most important piece of information. If Doppelganger isn't stopped, the academy will become the site of a horrific massacre next week. Countless innocent students will die. Seo asks Yu Hua one simple question: can she really stand by and allow that tragedy to happen? Silence fills the memorial. Yu Hua quietly looks toward the flowers, honoring her fallen comrades. After remembering everyone she lost, she finally lowers her weapon. With a heavy sigh, she agrees to hear Seo's plan. Inside, Seo quietly celebrates. He finally has an ally powerful enough to fight beside him. Leaning closer, he whispers the details of the operation. Everything will begin tonight at exactly 8 o'clock. Night falls over the city. Bright lights illuminate a luxurious casino packed with wealthy gamblers. Slot machines ring non-stop, while roulette wheels spin beneath sparkling chandeliers. Wearing nothing but his academy uniform, Seo calmly walks through the crowded casino while security guards discreetly keep an eye on every guest. Across the room, Yuhua blends in perfectly, wearing a stunning pink evening dress while pretending to enjoy the party. Even she can't stop wondering who Seo really is. Why would someone risk everything to stop a serial killer without asking for anything in return? A casino manager approaches to escort her toward the VIP section. Meanwhile, Seo quietly exhales. The operation has officially begun. Now, all he has to do is find Doppelganger before the monster finds its next victim.